Hi, I'm Larry Courtcamp, and this is Pointz TV, the show that introduces you to new and trending business topics, smart technologies, and the people that are making an impact on our small business communities. We've got a great show ahead of it for you today, and I hope you stick around and enjoy it. We'll be back in just a minute.
Create a stronger and more dynamic business. Larry Courtcamp, founding partner at the Courtcamp Group, talks with industry insiders about trending topics moving the needle for local business today. Here's your host, Larry Courtcamp.
And we're back. As I said, today we've got a great show for you today. We've got football legend Timmy Newsome is with us today. Timmy, thank you so much for coming to the show.
It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
You're welcome. And welcome to the audience today. Everybody's excited to hear what you have to say, but they're in for a little shock because we're not going to talk football with you today.
Darn.
Actually, I say we're not going to talk. We're going to talk about football a little later today,
Sure.
but Timmy's got another sideline that he likes to do, and he's got this sideline going for about 30 years, 29 years. And that's what we're going to talk about today because it's something that we all have to deal with as small businesses, and that's technology. So tell us a little bit about your other business, what you do there, Timmy.
Well, my name of the company is New Tech Business Solutions, and we are a unified communications company. We do managed services as well, and so we take those technologies and help people communicate better.
So when we say UCaaS in the industry, it's unified communications, which really just means making sure that all the equipment and the technologies that we have communicate well with one another, right?
Precisely.
Which is really very necessary in the small business community. As a small business person, we're more inclined to piecemeal things together, and then we wonder why it doesn't work well when it gets together. So we need people like you to help direct us on the right path.
Precisely. And the products and services that we offer is a combined solution. So customers don't have to go out and search for all of these different kinds of things to make it work. It's a total solution that will enable companies to do the things that they do best.
Gotcha. Which is, let's do some examples for people. What kind of, as opposed to the old days when we had a POTS line, which sadly a lot of people still do have,
Sure.
Plain old telephone line, how can they really elevate their business by doing something like a service that you provide?
Well, we take them away from the POTS line and take them to the internet. And when we do that, we enable them to do a lot of different things that they would normally do with separate products. For example, telephone calls is one, email is another, backup is another, text messaging is a third component to that. Additionally, we can provide a physical telephone or it could be a soft phone. So they can have a telephone literally on their mobile phone that would act as such as they were sitting in their office. So we take those solutions and we just downsize it a little bit and not at a great price.
And you mentioned moving it to the internet. We have a lot of people that maybe have been in their business for a while and they've tried some sort of a voice over internet phone several years ago. Our systems today are entirely different. And what they experienced maybe that was in a negative manner, we don't have to experience those types of things today. There's far fewer phone drops and the benefits are so much more exciting. You mentioned just a few. The soft phone, I think, is one thing that people really enjoy. And that just means we don't have to have this anymore.
Precisely.
Now we're dealing with our pads, our tablets, our iPhones. Tell us a little bit more about that soft phone feature, how it helps a business with what they do.
Well, it doesn't have a border, for example. You can take your mobile phone, you can take your iPad, you can take your computer anywhere, and you can receive and send calls from it. And that's a huge benefit for a business that's really mobile. And so we try to instill in businesses a need to be more mobile than they are. For example, COVID is a really good example. If they don't want to go into the office that day, they don't have to. They can use their mobile phone, they can use their computer to interact with customers in much the same way that they would do if they were sitting in the office.
And a lot of people don't understand that when they have that soft phone, it's as if they are in the office. Their clients and customers don't know the difference. The phone numbers are still coming in as if they're sitting at their desk. So they actually really do gain a lot more mobility than they've ever had before. Plus, there's a lot of extra features and benefits to those too, right? With how many phone recording systems are different now and getting email transcriptions on phone calls. There's a huge benefit to going into an internet-based system.
Precisely.
Not counting the cost, right?
That's exactly right. And it's at an affordable cost. A lot of our systems are less than $25 a month per phone. And they get all those features to boot. So it's a really good cost benefit for a small business to utilize.
Say that again, Timmy. What's that cost?
Less than $25
and
per month per
what's
user.
a typical POTS line cost in this market?
Oh, I'd say $30, $35 a month.
Up to $65 depending on where you are.
Yeah.
So when we say to people, this is a $25 a month cost, plus all these features and benefits, it's huge. It's a huge difference. And we've got a lot of customers that still 10 lines, 12 lines, 20 lines, times 50 or $60. That's a lot of money.
It really is.
And that extra money that they're saving now can go to some of the other features and benefits that you're going to help them with, right?
Precisely. And one of the things we do is that we take that technology and we integrate it with their customer relationship management product. Or we can integrate it with Office 365. So now when those calls come in, that data gets stored in that customer's database, and it's a tracking system.
These products that you just mentioned, like Office 365, these are really life-changing for a lot of small businesses. If they have people that are salespeople in the field or service personnel, the ability to have both documentation, emails, office flow working in this total environment is life-changing for a small business. And I know some of these guys are hesitant. And one of the reasons I'm introducing you today to them is we've got local people that are just awesome at this and can help our small businesses really get to a different level.
Precisely. One of the things I like to tell customers is that I was at a Dallas Cowboys game of all things. Can't
Unusual. I don't know why you were there.
And a customer had sent me a text message requesting a document. And all I did was go to my mobile phone, pick up that document from his folder and send it to him. And he never knew the difference. So it's a real huge benefit to have that kind of technology that's in the cloud that is readily accessible.
So we talked a little bit about security. And the only reason I'm kind of circling back to that a little bit is because in this situation that we're currently faced with so many home-based workers and so many smaller businesses, the smaller businesses already are lax at their business. Now we've compounded that by taking some of their employees and putting them in the home space. And they're working off their home computer. They're just accessing, different packets online. They don't have any idea what they're doing. And some of these industries actually have some other constraints. They're HIPAA, they're medical, they're related by different things, and they don't really realize how security. So I think when we come back from break, and we're going to go to break here in a second, we'll talk a little bit more about how our security is handled through your devices as well. Plus, when we get back, we're going to talk to Timmy about young Timmy maybe, how he got into this business, how he juggled being a professional sports legend at the same time he was getting into this field. It's very exciting, and I know everybody wants to hear about it. So we'll be back in just a second to talk to Timmy Newsome a little bit more about IT and how he handles his business.
We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. The Epoch Times is independent. We're not controlled by any special interests, and we never will be. The Epoch Times is a non-partisan media. That means we don't stand for any political party. This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would ensnare this country in ignorance, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
My American dream is to help you stay healthy and energized so you can live your American dream.
Our American dream is equipping future generations of American dreamers.
My American dream is to protect my community so they can live their American dream.
My American dream is to bring you some spice and flavor to your life.
Our American dream is ensuring what's most valuable to you.
Our American dream is creating opportunities for healthcare providers so they can have their American dreams.
My American Dream is serving our business community and advocating for all of your American dreams.
Hi, and we're back. Welcome back to Pointz TV. Today we're talking with Timmy Newsome. And now we're going to get what everybody wanted to do, and that's talk a little bit about football. So Timmy's actually been around a little while, and he was back in the heyday when things were happening. But more importantly, he had the foresight to get involved in an industry that today is so commonplace, and it's such a big part of the fabric of our business and our lives, that technical industry. And I for one am curious, and I know a lot of our audience is, how did you get involved in this?
Purely by accident, kind of. When I was a freshman at Winston-Salem State University, practices were 3 times a day, and that was a little bit daunting for my physical body. And so I decided that I was not going to major in health and physical education and play football. And so I was sitting in the registration line, and there was a guy in front of me, and I asked him what he was going to major in, and he told me, and I said, that's kind of interesting. So it was business administration and a minor in computer science, because in those days it wasn't quite a major. I'm kind of dating myself, but that's okay.
That's okay.
So I changed my major on the spot. And so I started going to classes and taking computer classes and just loved it. At the time, there were about 100 of us in the class. By the time I was a senior, there were only about 10 of us. So it was a very hard course to take. And once I graduated, I got to Dallas, and the player personnel director, Gil Brandt, says, look, you don't make enough money playing football, so we're going to have to find something else for you to do. He said, what would you like to do? I says, well, I'd like to, exercise my major and use it. And he says, okay. So he helped me find a job, and I found a job with a banking company that sold computer software to banks. And so I was a computer programmer for 8 of the 9 years that I was playing professional football. I'd do that in the off season and then go work out in the afternoon and then go to the season and play football. So I started out in the early 80s as a computer programmer. And then I opened my business full time in 1991.
Boy, for those of us that own businesses, we know there is no extra time, right? So it's like getting involved in that business and playing professional sports. Hats off to you, because that's a lot to undertake.
Yes.
Particularly in this industry, because there's just a lot to know.
It really is, but it kept me out of trouble.
Yeah.
I think.
And there was a lot of trouble in the 80s,
there was a lot of trouble.
I recall. That's right.
So, but yeah, I loved it. It gave me an opportunity to stay with my peers and not lose sight of the fact that sooner or later my career was going to end. Fortunately, when I left the game, I left kind of on my own terms, and I left healthy. And so I was ready to transition into computers and finish up a IT contract in Chicago, and then started my business.
Well, you're a magnificent player and
Thank you.
A magnificent career. So, but we're glad you chose the path that you chose, because you're really, you're such a significant part of the technology world here, particularly in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But you impact a lot of people and a lot of businesses with what they do. When we take a small business, or any business really, and we make it more efficient, or we make it more profitable, I always think about all the people that work for that company, or that touch that company in other ways, their vendors, their suppliers, all these other people. Think about just one thing, but it really is a lot of things in this environment. Before we went to break, we were just kind of touching on security just a little bit, and I want to revisit that a little, because security today, we have breach reports that come out almost daily, that I get them, and they're people that, if they're hacking the CIA, how is my business, protected from that? So
Exactly.
How do we handle security today when we're working at the office and at home?
Well, if you have a home-based business and you are having to work out of the house, you have to really look at your router, because that's kind of like your door. And you don't want anybody to just walk into your door. And so that router has to be that gatekeeper of sorts, to where you don't just let anybody in. And so when someone is trying to infiltrate your network, you don't want them to just haphazardly do it by keeping a password that you got from your provider, because that password is like something that millions of people have. So the first thing you need to do is just change the password on your router. The next step is to get a more sophisticated router where the network can be monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you don't want to pay someone to do it, at least you need to have access to it, so you can just monitor that traffic and say, look, this doesn't look right. And so we can teach people to do that in a very short period of time without a whole lot of headache.
So do you monitor? Do you have like a monthly service that you offer people?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
And does it now reach into the home as well? Are you covering, I'm sure you're covering business devices if they take those home. Do you encourage people to work on a business device rather than just their home computer? Or
Yes. Recently, there have been business devices that are not as costly for the home user. And so I would recommend not using a router that was purchased by your internet service provider, getting that other firewall, that extra benefit of having that protection that you need, because you get to manage that part of it and the internet service provider manages the other, and you have no knowledge of what's going in to your network when that happens.
now, when we say you're monitoring people, what is involved with that? When you say I'm monitoring the traffic, what are you monitoring?
I get email alerts about certain things that happen on a network. I physically sometimes will go into someone's network and just put in certain indicators. If they have businesses that they transact with on a normal basis, we let those things go through. If there's something that is a little bit unusual, we block it, especially email. We have these little protocols or scripts that we provide that these emails tend to be a little bit more suspect than others. So we just put that in a bucket and to call the customer and say, look, this email is a little suspicious. What do you want us to do about it? So those are the kinds of things that we do for customers.
Now, I noticed what you said there just a second ago, and I'm sure some in the audience, you said, when I do this. This is something interesting about Timmy. When he says I, he means I.
Yes.
He actually stays very active in his business and actually does a lot of the effort and work.
That's
it's not all just
right.
his minions and other people.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily a salesperson. I'm a technical person. I'm a computer programmer by training. So everything that we do, I have a hand in. And so I love the technical aspect of the business. I always have, always will.
One thing I like too about a business like yours that's been around for a little while, there's a lot of what we call legacy systems, meaning
Right.
they're just older. Sadly, in the tech industry, that means last Friday sometimes, but older can sometimes be 10, and particularly with small businesses, they carry a lot of equipment around for far too long.
Sure.
For their machines and everything else. And it's nice to have companies that have longevity with them because you're familiar with the systems, because you worked on those systems when they were new systems.
That's exactly right.
And now helping to migrate to a new system.
Sure.
I wanted our audience to know it's never too late to change. It's never too early to change.
Right.
But it's good to have, we talk with accountants, we talk to business, management consultants, and they all work with plans. And I like them to talk to people like you because their technology needs a plan just like everything else.
Oh, no doubt. I've got customers that use machines, for example, and they use Windows 7. And they just can't take a $200,000 machine and toss it out because Windows 7 is no longer supported. So we help them support Windows 7 until they decide to purchase another $400,000 machine. And so those kinds of things that we are ideally suited to assist customers in because of the legacy nature of what they currently have.
Are there any subjects, I know we're kind of getting ready to wrap things up here today, but is there anything we didn't talk about that you're kind of passionate about, or that maybe your business is trying to go in a new direction, or?
Well, I think the overall theme is that we can take all of these things that they find a little bit daunting and consolidate them into a simple solution. And we are not a bells and whistles kind of company. We're a practical company. And so things that they practically need, we can provide for them. Things that they use every once in a while, we'll say, this is not something you might need now. If you want to automate to where it's more cost effective to do it, then we can do that. But ordinarily, no.
So Timmy, we were talking about security and some other issues. I'm sure you've got a lot of stories about things. Do you have any interesting stories about maybe migrating somebody to a system or?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind more so than others is that I had a customer who was trying to transition from one phone system to the next and the internet service. And the prior IT provider wanted to cut them off early. And so they called me and says, is there any way we can have a phone system up and running in the morning? And so I went to my partner. I said, well, they need a phone system ASAP. How can we do that? He says, well, we don't have a physical phone yet, but we can download the software, give them a soft phone, and they can be up and running tonight. And so that's what we did. We downloaded soft phones to everybody's mobile phone, gave them the soft phone technology, assigned each person a number, and they were up and running before the next day. So those are the kinds of things we do for customers that are spur of the moment.
Well, and you're fortifying the reason why I encourage people to use local help, right? Local
Yes.
people, because a lot of the large national concerns, they're doing it all over the phone. They're not giving that added customer service that we all look for.
That's exactly right.
There's still a lot more for us to talk about. We're going to take a quick commercial break, say a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back in just a minute for more with Timmy Newsome.
Strong business has always been the clear economic indicator. Work Suites in Allen, Texas is just one of 18 locations in DFW and Houston that support your necessary transitions with full service and affordable workspaces for upgrading or downsizing your current workload. You need to be focused on growth. Trust the office experts and helpful staff at Work Suites to take care of everything else, from dedicated phone lines and internet to furnished executive and co-working spaces. The OBBM network has tripled our business in the short months we've been with Work Suites and encourages you to step out boldly, make the tough decisions, and get back to work your way. Your nation depends on it. The OBBM network acknowledges that this is a pivotal time in history, and it is clear the United States of America has been undermined by many of our elected officials for some time now. We want our local business audience to stand strong in the face of what we now understand, and to be empowered to grow our businesses on the local level beyond the limitations that have been imposed upon us. We believe it is in our national interest to inspire our communities through strong economic development, and additionally to hold our elected officials accountable for accurate representation of we the people. For that reason, we encourage you to go to WeStandForFreedom.com to learn about the National Write Your Congressman organization that has been the trusted communication tool for local communities for over 60 years. Learn how your representatives are voting. Understand the laws and regulations under consideration on the state and federal level before they are enacted at the county and city levels. Communicate directly with these officials and stand up for yourself, for by doing so, you will protect the communities you serve from tyrannical rule and unconstitutional reforms. The OBBM network is the premier voice for local business, and we take that responsibility seriously. The OBBM network has everything you need to grow and transition your business for success on popular syndicated podcast networks, Roku and other video channels, and the OBBM network app. We work for you, local business, and we've got your back.
Welcome back. We're going to have one more little bit of conversation with Timmy Newsome. Timmy, before we left to break, we were talking about a lot of things, but let's focus in on some specifics. One thing is software. A lot of the software nowadays is cloud-based. So when we think of cloud-based in our industry, one that pops up a lot is Microsoft Office 365. There's a reason for that. It's a very powerful program.
Yes.
Do you have any great stories about why people should switch, or people that you've had success in switching?
Well, when we convert people from their traditional Office system to Microsoft Office 365, we're giving them cloud storage, we're giving them better security features, and we're also making it more mobile. And so that software that they use on their computer, they can use on their mobile device. And that's the beauty of it, is to be able to be accessible whenever a customer calls and says, you know what, I think I'd like to have this document now. And you're sitting in a restaurant eating, and you may have to tell your guests, well, can I step out for a second and be right back? So you step out for a second, download that file, give it to them, and you can go back to doing what you're doing. So it's that advantage. I think it's really unique that they would not have had before.
And you were telling me a good story about another facet of your business when you had some issues with an internet connection as well.
Yeah, I had a customer who was promised internet service 2 weeks out from a move. And the day of the move, the internet provider says, you know what, we don't have the connection to your physical building yet, and it will take another 2 months. And so they were out without internet service, and they come to me and say, look, how can we solve this problem? I said, okay, well, let me take a look. And so we found a hotspot that could handle up to 50 users, and they were up and operational within 24 hours. And so they're very happy with it. And those are the kinds of things that we do for customers on the spur of the moment that give them what they need.
It's very impressive. That's a lot of users on a hotspot.
It really is.
You know, when we talk about 365, Office 365 with a lot of products, people don't realize all the stuff you get with a provider like that, including Word documents, Excel, a lot of different software that you no longer have to buy right? The big programs itself, it's always up to date. It's wherever you happen to be.
That's
the movement
exactly
of documentation. But making sure that is, there's adequate security on that, because now we're playing at home, we're playing at the office. So it really does drive the point home to have a person like you that's involved.
It does, because there are different versions of Microsoft Office 365. And so depending upon your need will depend on the kind of version that you get. And so it's very important that people understand that there are different versions, and based on your need will determine the kind of version you need.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because there are some more scary stories out there. Some of the providers that are kind of white labeling
That's exactly
the 365 product, and some of the features are not as robust as they are.
Yes.
And if you have to migrate or move your data from one place to another, sometimes those services do what we call throttling it down. They only allow so much data to pass each day. And some of these businesses are somewhat surprised to learn that it may take months
That's exactly
to switch some of their data from one server to the next.
It's a lot harder than it sounds.
It is.
Yes. But we make it real simple for the customer. We follow a process by which we do it in a very systematic and methodical way so that they'll understand the process.
Yeah. So you have, in addition to yourself, you have other technical experts that go on site. If somebody were to try and get in touch with you at your company, how are people going to find you?
Well, there are three basic ways. One is that they can call us at 972-248-7251. They can go on the web. It's www.nbsusa.net. And of course, they can always Google Timmy Newsome. I'm always available in that regard. And then Newtek is NEWTEC.
Very good. Well, it's been a pleasant conversation with you. We learned a lot. I hope to have you back in the future. We'll talk more tech. We'll also maybe talk a little bit more on the football side the next time too. Thank you for joining us today. We've had a great conversation with Timmy Newsome. As always, on BizPoints TV, we're brought to you on the OBBM network. Please tune in. There's a lot of great programming. Until then, we'll see you on the next episode.
To be a guest or request sponsorship information, contact the Court Camp Group at 972-824-8001 today. Production and programming information requests for the OBBM network should be directed to Offbeat Business Media by calling 214-714-0495 or send your request to info@offbeatbusiness.com. BizPoints TV, podcast, and radio show are produced by Offbeat Business Media for the OBBM network. Unauthorized use of logos, audio, video, or reproduction is strictly prohibited.